How about a quick mic check here? Let me see. Mic check. We good?
Yo.
All right, awesome. Super, thank you. All right, everybody, welcome to today's call. It is Friday. You know this is my favorite day of the week, but this is my favorite day of the year because it's the longest one. Paul and I were just talking about that. June 21st of 2019, TRC sales call, and the longest day of the year and the first day of summer. Exciting, but also depressing because we're on the other side of the hill as we roll down to shorter days. We'll get right after some Q&A here today. I know that I've invited a bunch of you in here, to come up with some interaction with me. Don't leave me hanging today. If you can help yourself, I'd like interaction, but I do want to talk a little bit about outside sales today. I want to make sure we make time for it because, again, it's a 2-beat sales training call in real estate. I've emphasized very heavily the telemarketing piece of it because that is key. If you are not talking to people on the phone, then you are not continuously building that relationship that leads to the outside sale. I don't like this mentality that you come to the end of the month, expireds, and you jump on the phone and you just try to skim the cream. I don't think that's a sustainable, predictable business model. So in this world here at the TRC, we share with you the concept of continuously building new relationships. We also talk about your sphere of influence. To start with is, in particular, your past client database. You must call them too. We have people in here like Paul Cantu, Voltaire Lepe. They do a great job and they keep accountable with me with a little tech series back and forth, making sure that rhythm happens. That's why these guys are successful. It doesn't mean you ladies aren't doing that too. There's Gail Rossetti who does the same thing, disciplines herself with calls. It's all about that consistency in your follow-up on the phone that leads you to be in the house with somebody, to be on the road with somebody. Today, Laura's covering while I do the sales training call. She is on the road outside salesing with one of our clients who has been in our system for quite some time. They're just trying to go through a process where they just probably need a little nudge today to make that decision. So timing becomes a big topic of conversation this week, and getting people established as to why their timing is what it is currently by melding with motivation. That's no surprise to you all. We get it. We know that timing and motivation are the things that as salespeople we need to be discovering on a regular basis, and that can only come by offering service, by giving, and educating so that people in return feel comfortable, they trust us, they share with us what's really on their mind. Okay, so there's my little recap, especially for all you mastermind members. You were on with me the other day or yesterday when we went to the campfire training where I walked you through a very clear case study where we did a very good job having cleaned up our act by asking better questions before we went out to the appointment, so that when we arrived, I was fully prepared with the history of the purchase, what had been done to the property, what had, where they had expired at, so I could close the gap and help with the understanding for that client, which is very important. You want to be shedding the right kind of insight with people when you go speak with them, okay? So what I'd like to do is I'm going to open this call up. I'm not going to start with some agenda. I don't have anybody that emailed me or texted me and said, hey, can I do this? So you can jump in here, and especially my mastermind members, please help me carry the call today. I don't want to overwork. I want to work on your stuff. This is about giving my insights and provoking conversation around what's going on with you. All right. So I'm going to open up the mics. Remember, *6 me. If it's loud where you're at, that means *6 your mic, or just put it on mute so that we can't hear the background. But I am provoking you. Please participate with me. If you have especially been invited by somebody to come on this call, that means you work with a big team. All my gang up in Ottawa can't wait to hear all the results of your adjustments from week to week. I'm excited, especially you, Sarah, since you're newer to this big change. Would love updates from you, from Dave, from Pat, that whole crew up there. Anybody else that's in an inside sales capacity. I'm trying to remember, I think it's Gina that's going to be on here today. So we have a lot of new people coming in dealing with telemarketing, but I also have a lot of you outside sales agents that are out there and you're not asking enough questions based on a scenario that you get stuck on or you're working with. I need to hear those to be able to talk to them, okay? So remember, I want an even keel here today. I definitely want to talk about outside sales. If I don't hear it by the halfway, I'm going to take over the call and we'll go from there. All right, here we roll. Go ahead. Who's up? Anybody up first? Anybody up with an update or something for me? Throw me a bone here.
Yeah, Danny, it's Gail.
Gail, I got you first, and then Paul, I think it was you second. Was that you? All right, Gail, go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to talk about my inside sales telemarketer.
Sure.
Donna, she's on the call. And
Hi, Donna.
She's just getting into
Hi.
it, and maybe she has some questions.
Awesome. Okay.
Hi.
Go. Do you want to start, Gail, or do you want me to just chat it up with Donna first about it? What's your expectation?
Chat it up with Donna.
Okay, Donna, how are you? Number one, and welcome. And if I haven't, I think I tried to reply to your request to be added to the group, which was Gail's request from me. I need you to send me a friend request so that happens, okay?
Okay, you and I are actually friends on Facebook, I believe.
Okay.
But I will follow up with that so you know which one I am. And don't worry, I completely understand. I know you're busy.
Hold on. Excuse me. We're live. Thanks. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
No problem.
Say again. Sorry. We have a live office here, so go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Just tell me a little bit about your
No
back.
problem. I was just
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background.
my
I'll make sure you get in the group. And anybody else here that's been added to a team that needs to be part of a group, check with your team leader so that we know exactly what's up with what they want you to be part of. Okay. So now go ahead. Thoughts and expectations about your background and how you melded in to be successful here.
some of my background, my father has an insurance brokerage, and I have lived in New York City and in the San Francisco Bay Area and done inside and outside sales in both places, largely in insurance. And a lot of that had to do with, just included a lot of telemarketing and phone calling and being on the phone.
Good.
Now, real estate is very similar to insurance in a lot of ways. There's a lot of crossover just with the way salespeople are working and dealing with clients and marketing themselves.
Sure.
So working with Gail has been fantastic. I probably could have some questions, but any insight that you have, I would just soak up like a sponge.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's no pressure to try to come in here without any kind of anecdotal background. In other words, and we know you just started. So what I want to encourage you is to lean on that past history, because I think ultimately what the default here is, the one thing that you really want to default to is making sure that you are just helping people. So when you get lost on your learning curve for real estate, because as I like to say, you'll run out of tarmac at some point in time, you just really want to just default to helping them. And that's about being resourceful. The key is when somebody doesn't know an answer to something, the best thing to say is, you know what, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. I think people appreciate, whether it's on the phone or in the field, when you don't have enough information, just that honesty to move forward with that. Does that help? That make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Because
That's
it takes
perfect. I'm going to be practicing that, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, it takes, first of all, I believe that that's the foundational problem in this business, is that everybody's looking for the appointment. Everybody can't wait to take and get what they want. And then the internet's the great equalizer, that if you don't give via email, via text, via video, whatever it might be, from marketing to sales to follow up, it's all about giving somebody to make an empowered decision. And what comes back to you is the law of reciprocity, where in return you will win the business. And I would tell you that on a pretty regular basis, you make it a competitionless vacuum. You always hear over the years that, oh, well, this person cheated on me. Well, wait a minute. What do you mean they cheated on you? What did you do for them so that they were so empowered by your information and your insight that there was no competition? You follow me? So it's the same thing in insurance. If insurance that you've done with your family business, if there's confusion about product, it's incumbent upon you to say, what is confusing you? What is stressing you? And now you take it into real estate, where this is the single largest financial and emotional transaction that most people will ever make in a lifetime. You have to put that context in place, right? And look at, I'm in the thick of my own transaction. And it doesn't matter the fact that I've been in this for 20 years, that I've coached it for over 13 years, thousands and thousands of hours being involved in deals. There's just something about a real estate transaction that makes you emotional. And so I think that emotion can confuse the logical part of anybody's brain. And so our job is to be there to bring logic back into it, to bring math back into it. Look at, here's what you're going to net at this price. So during your negotiation, you know where you stand. Here's what's going to happen prior to listing it, so you know where you stand, because people freak out. It's overwhelming. Not only is it emotional if it's somebody's home and they're moving from that, but more importantly, there's just so much to do in such a short period of time that having you to support them throughout the entirety of the process. And in your case, you'll be at the very front end of it, like Autumn, who's sitting in the office, until it gets to me on the outside, and Paul's new to the business sitting with me in the office. All of that has to be set up properly, but you have to see as part of the big picture, we're really just in the service business. We're in the relationship business. And the more that you can give, you're actually manufacturing a relationship, not a real estate sale. The real estate sale is a byproduct of this relationship guidance. In other words, I am going to give you guidance to empower you and to draw you into my world so that I have an opportunity to serve you further. So as a lead, when you pick up the phone and you call these people on Gail's behalf, to understand with me, with Gail, what is that service opportunity when somebody's brand new? So if it's contextually obvious to you that they've expired, well, there's a failure. Something's gone wrong. So what is it that we can do to help them in that moment? And the more that we can simplify that moment, the less stress there is on you to have this massive learning curve. We don't need you to do it on a muscle, right? Does that make sense so far?
Yes, absolutely. I've had relationships with real estate agents while I was working in insurance, and I've heard how emotional it can be, the transaction, but that is a very good reminder to get inside the heads of the people that I'm calling.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think the way that you do that is by, in the beginning, let's go to it for a second, because Autumn's here, and Autumn we gave Autumn room to take her 35 years of experience into real estate. Clearly, we had some guidelines for her on what the unique selling proposition of the company is. And that was our plan, our guidance, our insight, our information that relates to them without it being overwhelming. So we simplified that and we turned her loose. And what she found through technique and tactic was that introduction, that way of approach was wildly successful, I would say, like in such a short period of time, where, the conversation of, I saw your beautiful home online, I saw that it didn't sell, I wanted to send you some information that would help you sell it the next time. May I do that? That's it. I mean, there's no rocket science to this approach. It's just, and again, with the buyers, we're beginning to introduce her to buyer follow-up, and we will come up with something very similar to that whole process that simplifies it, but it speaks to the other side of the conversation. It's not what I want. I know what I want. I want sales. I get it. I'm running a business. My agents are here. My telemarketers, inside sales, concierge desk. Everybody here needs to make money. I understand that. But the way that most real estate agents go about it is so out of whack. They're actually pursuing people so over the top that they're chasing more business away, right? They're actually chasing it away. You want to learn how to magnetically draw people into you. And by the way, it's also a very good filtering system, because what will happen is that you will begin to attract those people to you that really want to work with you because of the way you're treating them. You're treating them well, they treat you well. So we don't want you to feel like, I believe in a position of plenty here. I don't believe that you have to dive over the side of the boat and go fight with every shark, put them in a headlock and try to bring them through the process. In fact, you won't like the job.
Right.
You just won't like it. You won't enjoy real estate. It will be burnout. There is enough emotion to manage in a good relationship, let alone one where somebody is not your avatar or ideal client. There's plenty of people out there that need good guidance. All right, questions about all that, and then I want to hear from my team on Ottawa about that. Autumn will weigh in, and anybody else that's here, my team leaders, let me know if you have somebody on this call that needs my attention today and my guidance, okay? So any thoughts about that, Gail, before I move on? No? Okay, I'm gonna move on.
No.
Okay, cool. Ottawa.
Sorry.
All good. Ottawa, let me hear from you.
All right. Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And Donna, welcome in. We're thrilled to have you. And as time goes on, what I would expect you to do is that, let's say something happens on a Monday, I want you to write it down so it stays raw, so that when you come to Friday sales training, you say, Danny, this is what exactly happened. Don't try to remember it. Let's bring it live, okay?
All right, perfect. I will. Thank you.
Super. Yeah. Bravo. All right. Ottawa, let me hear from you. Let's get an update on your progression moving into this way of doing things.
Hey, Danny, how are you?
Good. How are you, Sarah?
Good.
Give me an update. How's it going?
So I guess update-wise, we've been really successful in handling the objection of the biggest one was the renovations one. People giving us excuses why they aren't ready to have somebody come through the door.
Yeah.
So it's been kind of smooth sailing ever since we've added that to our verbiage.
Sarah,
that's
Sarah,
the biggest
for
one.
everybody's benefit and your benefit to anchor it even deeper inside of your approach, do me a favor and just go back to, and again, this is conditioning, right? Sales training is conditioning certain behaviors. First of all, discovery, do they work? Like we can sit here and theorize all day long, but until you take it to the field and you try it and it works, we don't know. So take it back to where you were, what adjustments you made, and why it's smoother sailing. Okay, just give us the anecdote so that you keep reaffirming it based in success. Not to flatter me, by the way. I'm not interested in that. I taught you what we learned here. Trust me, I got out of Autumn's way. I was just sharing this with Dean Miller, that oftentimes the leader needs to get out of the way as to what's happening, give somebody leeway, get real feedback, listen, and then make the adjustment. So you give us your storyline, please.
So I guess coming from my background of just focusing my conversations around the universal script, I never really stepped outside of that conversation, never really giving any more value. More so, I needed the information to book the appointment. So stepping into this role is definitely more, I had to definitely dig deeper. And one of the things I was having trouble with is converting seller prospects. So people are looking for an online evaluation. A lot of times they're either clicking an ad they see on Facebook or on Google. So they really are just expecting this information like that, just at the click after they put in their information.
Mm-hmm.
So once I was getting past my introduction, the introduction part was easy for me. And then it was getting through asking them the questions about their home. That way I can prepare that report for them. And then it was so was there a reason that you were looking for this information? And a lot of them where I was getting stuck was, well, we're just curious. And the ones that I was still able to get past that part, and I would offer to come in to do an in-home evaluation, the pushback I was getting was, well, you know what, we have a list of things we want to get done. There's some rentals we're thinking about doing. We're nowhere ready to have anybody come out and look at the home. So that was a huge block for me because I was having a hard time getting past that, where I was using part of my script that I was using before was, well, before you did any work, we can come and take a look at what you're planning on doing. And that wasn't working. That basically just, they were still kind of reiterating. They were closing me, basically telling me, well, no, we want to get this done before we have anybody come over. And so when I brought it up a couple of weeks, you mentioned that one thing we could do is, one, understanding what the real objections are of that pushback, which was, one, they don't know who I really am. Why would they be letting me in? They don't really trust me. And in their mind, I think a lot of clients that get on the phone and are speaking with somebody about real estate, they're conditioned to put a wall up, right? Because in their minds, they see us as the predator. We want to come in, get that listing, put a sign up. That's why they're being defensive. And so once we kind of take that step back and say, well, I know that's not what you want to do right now, but we can help you with the reconditioning, and then using those words and talking to them about, well, based on what I'm looking at, there's a range that you can sit at. So explaining to them that giving them this information may eventually help them in the sale and getting more money has definitely kind of softened my approach. It's given a chance for me to provide them a little bit more information. I send them a package. It introduces them to our brand. That way I can send them like a pre-list package, basically to give you more information about who we are, our team. And then it opens that door to my next call.
Yeah. Can you imagine, like you made me think of this in more graphic terms. Can you imagine that you're sitting at home today, somebody picks up the phone and they know a little bit about some context you have. Let's say it's a marketing company that's been tracking you online and you've been looking at women's shoes, for example, or whatever, right? Let's just make up an item. And somebody picks up the phone and calls you today and says, hey, Sarah, it's Danny Griffin from, ladyshoesonline.com. And saw that you were looking at shoes and was wondering if I could come by with a box of shoes and have you try them on in your home today. Huh? Like you what are you going to start opening the door for strangers just because you have context? And again, I know that was kind of a weird analogy, but hold on. But does our brain drop out of our head that we don't respect that's the initial context? You see, the problem is everybody's kicking the door down with these ridiculous scripts and this ridiculous language, and they're not taking that beat to say, hey, I know you're chomping at the bit today. Hang on. I'm going to turn you loose in a second. See, this is the problem when you get Autumn successful in 12 weeks. She's chomping at the bit to weigh in on what you said. But I want to emphasize a point here. Slow down, everybody, and think. If you were the person on the other side of this phone call, and outside sales agents, I told you I'm going into that today. 9 minutes. It's a hard cutoff for outside sales because I'm going to show you that face to face, it is even more important to slow down into a methodology that empowers these people, right? And even though they've been set up properly for this reconditioning appointment, the outside sales, Sarah, needs to be set up so that when they arrive, they understand it's that moment all over again of respect. Okay. I respect that you even said yes to Sarah on the phone. Here I am. We appreciate that you let us come over to discuss the reconditioning pre-sale. We appreciate that. It's so not lost to me at this moment in time that when somebody invites me into their home, it is my privilege to do that, right? I am privileged in that moment because they've invited me into something that's very serious to them, very important to them. And this is a big moment for them. And that can't be lost on us. So it can't be lost in that moment when you first begin the relationship on the phone. And it definitely, as it transfers to an outside sales agent, they need to hear this too. They can't just come in like it's a transaction and they're doing their own thing. And I don't know if we have Sarah Corey on with you, Sarah, but the whole point is that if there's not a melding, a tight-knit way that we understand these moments for the consumer, we're missing opportunities and we're turning people off. Or like you just said, we're putting them further on the defensive, which makes your job even harder to bring them out of that mode. Make sense? Yeah, did I lose her?
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm Sarah Corey here too.
Sarah Corey, go ahead, weigh in on that because that's your job to manage that bridge, right?
Yeah. In terms of how they're doing with the objection handling and that type of stuff, before I found it was really trying to push people into the door. Yeah. But now that they're sitting back and listening, our conversion rate has gotten better.
Already, right? And it's a couple weeks ago. Okay, go ahead. I'm gonna let my wolf out.
Yeah,
she's banging on the cage door. Here she comes.
I have a few things to say, and Sarah, I don't want you to hear this as criticism at all. Okay, I just want you to hear what I'm saying. The first thing I want to say is avoid weak language. Weak language can be when you're asking to come to the house and to get in the door. Weak language can not only be words like could I, maybe, what if we just, words, and I'm not saying you're saying that, but what I'm trying to say is you want to avoid weak language in that sense, but you also want to avoid weak language by talking too much, filling the air with lots of little its, ands, and buts. You want to paint a better picture while you're talking to them in regards to getting into their house. I would keep it concise. I would make it pretty. So they're saying, hey, I want to upgrade my house first. Not a problem. I would steal Danny's term immediately and say, I just want the nickel tour. I can see through all that stuff. I want to look at the bones of the house. use some words like nickel and tour and bones and things that paint pictures, and do it with a smile, with an attitude of service.
Well, she's telemarketing. So the bridge over to the other side would be that stuff, which is a good point there. Let me hang on to this. And Sarah, I think your evolution sounds like it's freed you from the chains of the way that you were doing it before, which I think is important. But why? Why do you feel more empowered on the phone? And Sarah, Corey, you can weigh in after her why you think it's working better. Sarah, what you sound so much lighter. The first couple of calls, it was like your own pace, and even talking to me about it was so fast, as if you didn't want to reveal that maybe there was a mistake that you were making. And I get that you were new to my group and all that stuff, but you've slowed way down, which I think is making you think more strategically. And all of a sudden there's sort of this revelation. Would you agree? Would you add to that? What would you say?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a lot more flexibility in terms of what I'm allowed to say. Whereas before, there was just such strict parameters on what I was able to do and what I was able to discuss. And so it was kind of breaking away from that, which was making me nervous because I was so used to doing things a certain way and having conversations a certain way. And so stepping over that and then trying to have new conversations, it definitely was very humbling. And I do feel a lot better about my conversations now because I'm actually able to give people something, and it's not just about what do I need from them in that conversation. Yeah, good. Which is, the timing, their motivation, and getting when they're ready.
But also, there's what's missing about the concept of telemarketing. It's a big word. Everybody wants to talk about inside sales, and it puts pressure on selling something. But telemarketing is marketing the message of the company. Right. Which is a more global. I'm not saying it's separate from trying to get the appointment for the preconditioning appointment, or if the listing appointment is there. I'm not saying that I would ever pull the punch and tell you don't get it if it's not there. Of course you would get it. Right. The ultimate thing is to get the appointment for even if it's early and where it's a two-step, which we're finding a lot of the expireds need consultation before they're going to list. So no problem. And we're finding that beat. But more importantly, what you and Laura discovered together was it was an opportunity to get a marketing package via the phone. Yes. Telemarketing. Here's who we are. We'd like to send you out some information about who we are, so that you get a comfort level that we are not some stalker.
And it's beautiful.
Right? Yeah.
It's all beautiful.
Very intentionally, so that the ability to introduce the company is a huge piece of this that everybody's blowing through. Her notes from June 7th, 2019. We have the notes from Autumn. She's kind enough to put, the major points in here. And right down the bottom, this stood out to me. And I want to remind everybody, be willing to play the long game. Why are we all in a rush? The rush is absolutely what's killing your steadiness and predictability 4 or 5 months from now, because you're in such pressure. I get it. Everybody needs cash flow, but you're in such pressure in that moment. It's actually achieving the opposite effect. I'm not saying you're not getting some appointments, but what you're not recognizing is how many additional ones you chased away. Okay. So that you're skimming, and the consumer, because of the internet, can be more guarded. Why? Because they can do more education on their own without you. Now, I still believe that's a delusion, that the consumer thinks they're going to do all this, this information gathering in their busy lives about buying or selling when there's so much detail.
Well, it's like WebMD. You go on WebMD.
You got it. It's a great point. Yeah.
You're dead.
That's funny.
Right?
I like that. Go on WebMD. You'll kill yourself. Yeah. Which ironically, if the buyer or seller thinks they're going to go online, or they're going to go watch HGTV and they're going to know how to do this, that's precisely where it becomes absolutely a departure from the reality of what they're going to go through. And I think one of the biggest things on that preconditioning offer, and that goes simultaneously with look, here's who we are. We do this. Let me send the package out. I'll call you back in 3 days to make sure you got it, and that you vetted us online, so that when you went and saw that we're real, now you're comfortable to have us come over, and now we can be the guidance that you truly need in the property. Because what you think is the right upgrade may not be. What you think you're going to do is spend this money and then it's going to get you your delusional money. No, it doesn't work like that. In fact, developers have a hard time doing that. They have a hard time buying, fixing, flipping. We have Jake Chase on here today. I mean, this guy's a professional at wholesaling out to flippers. Everything matters. Margin matters. And what? Now you have a retail residential seller who's going to go out and play this game without guidance. It is certain to fail or hurt them. I'm not saying that they won't get out of the house, but you don't know what you don't know. And that's our job, to go out there to the public and tell them what they don't know, whether they use us or not, with hopes that they come back in. Okay. All right. I have to segue off of that because I want this to be right into how I work with my team here, from telemarketing to that appointment. So going back to my own transaction, ironically, I think I see the co-broke up there. Tori, hi, if you're up there, she'll appreciate this. The point was, after all the adjustments and the fix-ups and the things, there comes the moment of reality where you're going to do this transaction, and the offer comes in. And to make your business better, it's very important to have to go all the way back to that telemarketing moment that led to the marketing moment the moment in the house where you set your seller up for success. Now, the craziest thing is, once in a while, it'd be great for you all to go through your own sale so you feel the true, authentic, crazy emotions that well up during your transaction. It's just what it is. It's a heightened moment that doesn't happen that often in your life, where you are responsible for selling your own property. So you have this unique ability to ride alongside yourself as the agent and as the broker, right? So that's how you end up, kind of looking at each other. It's like sort of this bipolar moment where you're looking back at yourself. And what I found is, the broker working with Laura in the heat of the moment, I didn't have my net sheet right in front of me. And I wanted to give the courtesy of an immediate response to show appreciation and willingness to continue the discussion. And so time mattered to me. That's the broker in me with 20 years of experience and thousands. Forget about the tipping point. I tipped long ago, right? I have thousands of hours of distinctions, knowing that it's appropriate in that negotiation moment to be courteous, to be swift, to move through. But you can't do that if you are not properly prepared from the very beginning of your relationship building. Let me explain. What I changed, I manifested in a house. So my own transaction made me think, my gosh, I came looking for my net sheet. I didn't have it in an email and in this case, I know I'm my own broker, but Laura is charged with client care. So when I called Laura and I said, where's my net sheet? She said, I don't have it with me. It's at the office. So there, if I was a client, I'm certainly not going to go to the office of my broker and get my net sheet. But because it's me, I came here. And I went to where it was supposed to be, and it wasn't there. So the emotion begins to click up. The agitation begins to click up. For me, it was more frustration, because I wanted to be courteous to the other side, like I said, and give them a response that night. It's just the right thing to do, to be prepared. You're going to sell your house? Come on, let's go. Be prepared, right? Move through this. It doesn't mean rush. It just means move. So what we did, right. So now what we did was we came back. I talked to her first. And I said, first of all, big faux pas. Every single one of our clients need to be sitting with a net sheet. And as time goes on and it needs price reductions, new net sheets are created. Right. New comparables are brought in. More current information is brought in, so the empowerment moment is there. There should never be guessing when it comes to negotiation time, which is the heat of the moment where this is going to go together. So what did we do? We really sat down and we said, which we had already adjusted when you first started. Mm-hmm. The questions that you ask your seller or buyer, which we're going to work on next, up front. Why are you doing this? Remember I said to you, like, really lean in on them and say, do you really want to go through this? This is a lot of work to sell your property. So that when I went into this house, I had these notes. We don't happen to have the folder over there, do we? Can you look on her desk, Autumn?
For what exactly?
For the one we just went to, 2828.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to have it in front of me so I can tell you, as I fixed the front end, which means I went to Autumn, I went to Laura, and I said, we need adjustments. I'm coming in with this technical analysis that gives me a range, but what I'm not coming in with is I'm not coming in with a net sheet to show them that depending on where they traded in the end, somewhere in these numbers, that this is what they would walk away with. So, and everybody gets a little squishy on the outside sales, and all you telemarketers need to get used BDAs, inside sales, whatever you call yourself. You need to work with the team leader or all team leaders or agents that are flying solo. Take the time. Eugene said to me, he says, well, I love the technical analysis. That does that. But, do you really think, stop. If you are following a proven formula that empowers the consumer, and you start to cut out pieces for your own convenience and comfort, for your own convenience and comfort, for your own convenience and comfort, that's what you're doing. You're cheating the consumer process because it makes you more comfortable, okay? And it's more convenient to cut those corners. You're cheating them. So what happens here is when you have a seller qualifying questionnaire that gets into quality, you're really showing them, and this is after that initial call. So once you get in there, I want to be prepared when I walk through that door. I want this seamless from Autumn telemarketing to Danny outside sales agent in the field. And if you're doing it yourself, you want to set yourself up properly. But if I were to look at this appointment, I could sit in the driveway, which I do. I get this package, and now I know it's improved because we did a couple of things here. But the most important thing is that I have these qualifying questions. Why are you thinking about selling? Why are you doing this? We all know it's emotional. We know you went, in this case, expired. We know you went through this before. Why are you doing it again?
Right.
What are you thinking, right? And it sounds like a takeaway, but it's an honest to goodness caring for the human being. That's why I said if you go through your own, you really connect to it. So, okay, good, you're thinking about selling, but on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated are you? Why are you asking me? Because if you're not upwards towards 10, then you're not ready to do this. Because it's so harrowing, you're going to have to be motivated to hear our true guidance, or you're going to fall off the cliff of Mount Everest. Think of yourselves as Sherpas, local villagers at the bottom of Everest about to take somebody up there. And if they are not a 10 to try to ascend this thing, and they start like kind of getting whimsy about the whole process, off the side of the cliff they go, or back down they go without summiting. That's what this is. And I'm not trying to be dramatic to the extent that I know we're not climbing Mount Everest, but man, this is a pretty big emotional transaction that you're about to go through. Now, what's the history? I'm coming in to assess this thing financially. Don't make me guess. Don't make our appointment less than what it could be. It needs to be the best it can be. So tell me, when did you buy the property? Did you buy it long ago? Did you just buy it recently? That's all contextually critical to me, right? Now, in this case, it was 2014. What did you pay? That's not too long ago, by the way. And on Cape Cod, you want to look at the market for the last 5 years? Pretty flat, he said, right? With all this delusion that the stock market has anything to do with the real estate market, go Google Case-Shiller Index and read what that says about real values of property. You might be shocked. What'd you pay? $595. Okay. So now the first thing that we need to do is, if you only 5 years ago bought this property and you paid this, what did you do to improve it? Here we go, Sarah. Now you see why we talk so much about all this reconditioning stuff. Because if you bought it for X and you make this delusional assumption that you're even riding along inflation, you're not. Ask Case-Shiller, you're not. You're not tracking inflation, and your product is deteriorating. The minute you buy a property that has exposure to the weather, you begin to deteriorate. The minute you buy something, even if it's updated, it begins to atrophy as far as perception of what modern expectations are interior-wise. So we have this declining, depreciating asset from a physical standpoint, and we have all these external factors that are weighing in on it, market factors. So people tend to make this hopeful, delusionary value add to that. Well, I bought it for this, and I fixed this, and I fixed that. Yes, you needed to, because those things were in disrepair. So to maintain value and at least be in the game again, you needed to do those things. You see, I'm saying this because I want people to understand that in that moment, I am a consultant of reality. When we get up to that first base camp, it's pretty cold up there. And if we don't have the right rations, you could starve to death at that first base camp. Worse, on the way up, there's sheer wind fail again. You have to really you have to get emotionally attached to your value that you're about to add add in this appointment in the property. So, okay, good. Now I can see from this sheet, Autumn, who's setting me up for success with the consumer, meaning I can be successful for the consumer, whether they hire me or not. I can give good, sound advice. And by the way, they might decide not to sell. If my advice is sound, it gives them a true platform upon which to make an intelligent, informed decision to sell, to not sell, okay? Or to recondition, to try to just get back in the game, let alone extract value, okay? So we have this replace ceiling, set bathroom, and then we find out that it's an antique. Because what we ask is, what's the best feature of the home? The history, the antiquity. These are powerful words, right? And we're finding that out before we ever go in there. We know what is important to them about this place. That history, antiquity, this is a true owner of an antique. So what do you like most about living there? She repeats it, gorgeous, antique, right? What do you think the property's worth? Now, this is where, now that they're supporting this conversation, okay? And they're co-creating it is a better way to say it. People will support, AKA your relationship with them when you arrive and on the phone, they will support what they co-create with you. So as we're asking these qualitative questions about what they love and what it means to them, they're co-creating relationship around this product with us. So that when we arrive, now we say, now we can get into the business end of it. What do you think it's worth? Wants more than what they bought for. Okay, good. This is becoming reasonable. However, when I looked to my package sitting in the driveway, okay, because I don't try to bias myself, I saw that the last asking price was well above this. So if I take the $595 and I add what we think was added here according to them, and by the way, most people guess at that. They don't break out their receipts and they don't put it down, and that's your job. Corral the math. When you corral the math, you corral the reality and you empower the decision. So now we've got all this information. What's most important to you when selling your home? A buyer who won't ruin it. How about that? I mean, they want somebody who emotionally appreciates this. You don't think this is an emotional discussion going on here? Right. Here's your evidence. I haven't even walked in the door yet. So, and reasonable. Why are you thinking about selling? Husband doesn't like it as much as the other one I own down the street. So I know where the conflict is. I know I have somebody at a 10, but I know the person I'm meeting with is not. He's probably out cutting which he was. He was cutting the grass with his head down, never came in. He was awesome, right? Larry's out there doing his thing. And I go in and I sit and we have this discussion. And it was great because it really was about her trying to come off of all this attachment to this, and it was beautiful, by the way. Mm-hmm. Beautiful antique with a beautiful addition, gorgeous lot. I mean, it just was awesome. I walked in, I was like, whoa, how about this place? Right. So I'm enthusiastic, but I have all this. So I come in caring for this human being, knowing all this. Yeah. Now, when you sit down, there's a formula. Because in spite of the individuality of how telemarketing passes it off seamless to me, we now have a package ready to go seamlessly. Right. I'm going to explain this just like a formula. I walk in and I say, thank you so much for inviting us into your home. We really appreciate it. Because I do. And I'm going to say it every time at the door. We're flattered that you would have us over. Thank you. Right. Thank you. Because I mean it. I'm trying to run a business and you just let me into this asset that you own to have a shot to guide you. That's an appreciation moment that most of you don't express thoroughly because you're nervous. I get it. I get it. But take that off your chest by coming in prepared and confident that you're there to help this person climb the first base camp, right? Which is all you're going to do in this meeting. Climb the first base camp. You're not going to jump to the top. That's called a closed sale, right? So now you get them going through this process and you go and you look. And what are you looking for? You're looking for a base against your formula, meaning what? If you have 7 steps, and all of you in TRC should be following this formula, okay? We know that there's a pricing range. So we have that analysis that has the range already set up based on the evidence. I'm prepared. Then I look at, is this going to fall? I mean, am I walking into a house that's dilapidated? Is this buffed out? Where am I at? Average, above, or below? Simple. But As a part of that, what's affecting that is my vision of the current condition outside, the current condition inside, and then the staging of the furniture on top of the conditioning to enhance it. I have my first 3 beats already in mind as I hit the threshold, actually when I drive in the driveway. And oftentimes I'm there 15 minutes early so that I can drive the immediate neighborhood so that I am rooted in how the neighborhood is affecting this. Oh my gosh, you have some gorgeous houses up behind you. The water is right there. You become much more hyper relevant to the discussion. So now you sit down and you say, okay, great. Thanks for the nickel tour. Can we sit somewhere where we're comfortable, where I can face you? Just state it. No, don't let the tail wag the dog. I think it's better if we sit at the table because I have some things I'd like to spread out and show you. You get eye to eye whenever you can. If there's 2 decision makers, you control this. Could you both sit across from me? Because it's just easier if I can speak to both of you at once. And in this case, it was one person. We sat comfortably at the kitchen table. And I was able to say, hey, look it. Thanks. This house is gorgeous. Be enthusiastic. I know it didn't work out, but if you decide to, and if you want to, you can sell this. This is a great house. So I reaffirm, and that's true with any house. I don't care. Everything has potential to me. I wouldn't do this business if I didn't have enthusiasm for it. So I said to her exactly what I meant. Great house. Best antique I've seen in a long time. Right down from the bones up. Excellent. Bravo. So now I say, but before I get started in telling you about the process, tell me why you want to do this. Why not just keep this thing? Well, I'm renting it. It's not making what I thought. Yep, I'm empathetic. I have one too, and I'm surprised at a couple of weeks, et cetera. So we get into that. So this thing is not making money. And the rest of the year, it's empty. And Larry doesn't like it. So I have all these reasons, but I'm about you. What are you hoping happens here? Is there any reason for you to keep it and continue to do this? Not if we're going to move in, right? So now it becomes clear that there's motivation to talk about this. So I break out first the market update. This is new for me. I said, well, look, I go right in, and I don't think we have it all in this package because this is my leftovers, but I break open this nice black folder that's presented to them professionally on that side where everything is formulaically in order. Here's a snapshot of what's happening in the market. You can see that where you were, you're hovering around the average price. It's just a difficult price range once we get above there, and your strategy really matters, but be hopeful. Also, here's some other statistics that you can peruse when we're done, but the average price per square foot is an indicator of what's happening. And when something goes right here's your real hope. It only takes 91 days on Cape Cod to sell a house once it's priced correctly. So then we slide that aside. And the way that we get it done for you is the 7 steps. And we walk through it, and I'm transparent. Now, what we just did was take a look through so that I could see whether you're going to be above or below average condition. And when I saw that you were spot on, I think I have some suggestions on the outside, but I really don't have many on the inside because you have done a fabulous job with this antique. And because you're renting it, it is staged perfectly. Don't mess with anything on the inside. When it's go time, I'll talk about cutting the beds, remulching, keeping the grass cut. And by the way, that's really going to show off this antique better because it's not quite popping from the road. So I get into that right away. Condition and staging. And so I'm walking through this, and with the infographic, which most of you are familiar with, I'll hold it up for all those online. It's this nice quality infographic that's in front of her, and I'm circling certain things while I'm talking. I'm directing where she was in the process, where I'm at in the process with her. So it's guiding her to be in control of this information, not overwhelmed with me talking at her, saying, look at me, I did this and I do that and I'm better than what? There's a time for resume. But it's not when you're guiding somebody about where they've been already, where they're at with you in the house, and where they could go. You talk about painting a story. How about just stating the one that's already the chapter we already read, the chapter we're living in, and where I think the happy ending, can go if they just follow the plan, right? Because that's what you want, that result. So you're taking them through with an infographic clarity and simplicity
So they all have
to empower them in the moment.
The agents have this.
This crew?
Yeah.
Yeah. If they don't and they're not using it, they get a cattle prod from me, right? Because there's nothing more important than the simplification of what you're doing. Now, we go through that. Any questions about that before I show you the analysis? Okay. Nope. Good. Then we break out the technical analysis, which is not just halfway comparables. Okay. We talked in my office about adjusting these and thinking from my team, Serena and Dallas, who pulls and makes the spreadsheet, sold to assessed ratios, just like algorithms online do. We start to get a feeling for math. I'm not going to divulge into all that right now, but math tells a very simple story. And it comes from all the pretty pictures of the houses who were successful. I don't need to sit there and look at everything that's for sale, who sold and how much did the buyer pay and how close is that to what you have. That's where you start. Reality. Nobody needs smoke and mirrors about what you're going to do with your international buyers and all that garbage. They need math. They need to know why they didn't sell, and math tells you why when you look at it. Because here are the successes and here's what they look like. So as we go through that, we begin to point to, look, you expired at this. And here's the average number. You're just slightly above that, and we already know that you didn't get that. So what we need to do is start to look at some absolute sales. Who sold at the price that you did? Well, quite frankly, in the whole town, there's 8 of them, okay, in that price range over 6 months. It's not many. You're in a tough price category. But let's take a look. There was plenty of it. But because you're an antique with a modern piece, I went even further. And that's when I broke out the second CMA, which had antiques only. And the most important piece of that one was a 675 pending. So now I'm in a real dialogue where I have a 595 purchase, a guesstimate at about 40 done, and I have a 675 pending. But I have math that tells me I could cheat into the 7s. I don't need to hammer this poor woman into any hardcore conversation at that point in time. What I need to do is just demonstrate there's the math. And unfortunately, even though you were inside the math and got showings and some interest, the math is tugging you downwards. Okay. You can see that. It's telling a different story. And she told me an anecdote about how she got beaten up by one guy who said, I'll give you the 595. Well, I said, that's not going to happen on my watch because I'm going to be prepared with what you spent, how you upgraded it, and some extracted value. But I can't just have you tacking on 100. This doesn't work like that. You can't go out, buy, spend, and tack on 100. It just doesn't work. Right? Now that reality is coming in where the math is. And now remember, she's reconciling emotions about doing this at all, but it's coming down. And the next quick question, how much do you charge? That's a good indication that we're making some serious progress. And instead of dealing with it as we always do, well, I do this, but because I do that, we get all weird and defensive. I said, no problem. I'll discuss that. But I'd like to discuss it in the context of a net sheet. Let that sink in. It's a massive distinction for me. If this math showing them the range that they'll trade in is so very important to them, now show them what it means if they were at the low end and the middle, if that's where they are, or if they're buffed out the high end. You anchor them with what could go sideways and be difficult, and you bring them to where you hope to be, so that between the two of you, you're looking at this net sheet. And I'm telling you, 95% of the time when you do math for people, including your commission, tax and deed stamps, lawyers, everything that goes in there, you empower them. And there's such a less focus on your commission rate, because what you're doing in that moment is empowering them to make a decision to see, aha, okay, no surprises. Let's go get this and move on. And see, most people will acquiesce to their own reality if you've gone through that process, okay? All right, try to get through that as quickly as possible, and it's fresh. What day did I go out? 2 days ago? This week? Yeah. So that's 48 hours ago where this process was refined. Simple formula. By the way, folks, I was out of there in a total of about 45 minutes. And our follow-up was set. She can't sell it right now because she's rented it for the summer. Our follow-up was to continue to give her this math, meaning every time something pens or solds that's an antique or in her price range, she will have it in her email. And Laura, who we now pass it on to for long-term client care, will follow up until the time is right to take a fresh look at the math and go time. But in the meantime, I also did say that on my nickel, I would begin my marketing by sending out my pro team to take a drone picture when this place is in full form for the summertime. right? That we would tell her, we would pay for it, but we need to show people online that the water is right there and the village is right there, which nobody had done. Very simple thing, low cost, but nobody had done it. So the story was there. So we begin as if this relationship is continuing in a very positive way towards a listing. I know it's presumptive, but if she blows me off, she blows me off. But I still left her better than I found her. All right, let's do some Q&A for 5 minutes about that outside sale with a listing presentation. 45-minute formula. Questions, thoughts?
Hey, Danny.
Yep, go ahead, Andy.
Danny, this is Andy. So, I was on the call yesterday talking about this listing presentation you had,
Yes.
and then on here as well. And you did the nickel tour, and you sat down and you said, "Hey, this home's beautiful. You've done a great job, keeping the house up to date. It's staged well because it's a rental." Hey, talking about
Yeah.
So now let's start to dive into the pricing model.
Sure.
Right. So I guess a little confusion here is that, with the 7 steps, we talk about the pricing model first. And, is it
We don't break out,
or-
we don't break out the pricing model right there. We talk about it as a process. Okay. Good question.
process? Okay.
Good question. I am not showing you any of my math until I've walked you through the 7 steps on the diagram. I'm telling you,
okay.
I'm going to tell you where you were at, where you've arrived at. I'm going to tell you all that first so that you know I have a plan, because you're trying to demonstrate that you are different as a guide because you have a very clear plan. And here are the steps. And I'm also, in this case, because this person was somebody that, had failed at this before for a year, I'm very cognizant of telling her how far she got, to be encouraged. Hey, you got pretty far. There's a couple of tweaks on marketing. You're definitely at this communication stage where you broke down. And I'm good there, as you can see, because I'm already prepared with the math. And you would have never gotten beaten up by that one guy because I would have made my case to him, but I certainly wouldn't have lost him. So I can see where you broke down, and she understood that. Now, do you have any questions about this 7-step process? Any? And so if she wants to go back and say, yes, could you reiterate about the marketing? Could you tell me about syndication marketing versus push that you referenced, right? So she might have some questions about it, but most likely it's relatively thorough. I would have caught those questions during the 7 steps, leaned in and say, looks like I lost you there. Do you have a question? So there's a real back and forth. I'm very cognizant. I'm not talking at her. I'm trying to interact about each spot, but I'm controlling the process in a formulaic way for her benefit. I don't want to lose her. I'm going to say, here's the 7 steps. Now let's get to the analysis to show where you were when you last had this on and it stopped to where you are now. So Andy, in this case, there's been no test to the market, but with an expired, my gosh, think about the evidence I have. I have a final asking price where she failed in front of me. So I have a hard cap, in this case, 735, and I have an average number that my analysis tells me she could have sold at 720. So I don't even have to go to the high end of the range. They've already tested it. It already failed. And again, I know a little bit more about antiques. They sell for a lesser percentage of their assess because they're old, 200 plus 300 years old sometimes, right? So there's going to be a discount. So I have math now work from the bottom. Because of the process on telemarketing to book the appointment, I know I have a cost of $595. I know I have a guesstimate of about 30, 40, did she say? 40, yeah. So let's just call it 40. So now I'm at 635 and the low end was 627. So I know she's better than that just on hard cost. I can make the case. Forget about the cost of selling with me or anybody else. I'm at 635 and I have, a 720 average that she would have gotten if her asking of 735 was right. Then I break out this analysis. The math is there. It's still a big bracket. Her hard cost 635 and she's not in dilapidated condition. So I can clearly start to cheat her more towards the average than the low. And if I say, all right, you spent the 40, you probably extracted some value for doing that. So somebody else doesn't have to, so we can add a little bit there, but I'm still in that mid 6 range. So now I go to the other comparables and I say, okay, beyond the analysis, let's look at some pictures. Let's see what this bought. But I didn't go to this one. I went immediately to the antiques.
Mhm.
And I said, let's look at what the market's saying yes to right now. And there was a 675 and it was quite a bit of house. I'm not going further than that. I'm going to leave this with her because she's not making a today decision, but I have the stuff in there for antiques that sold at 675. This is all happening after the process has been discussed.
Right. Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
You bet. And that's the new moment that I'm trying to teach here, is that's when the discussion about how much do you charge comes up, because all of a sudden now it's like, wow, these people are organized. I understand what you're saying. I'm tending to lean in to use you because of your enthusiasm and your system. And I'm not saying that I'm cocky and guessing that. People have actually told me that a lot lately. So they're like, wow, that was really helpful. Let me digest with my wife, with my husband. Let me think. No problem. No problem. But don't get stuck. So now you get to the other side of that. You say, you asked me about commission. What I'd like to do is do what's called a net sheet so that you have no surprises. You don't need any surprises about the math. Here's where it's at. So I said, I did one at 627, but I understand you're in it even for more than that. And I believe that you're definitely not the low end of condition. So I'm going to still leave it there. Follow me, Andy? I'm going to do a net sheet off of 627.
Yes,
that's the lowest end because that's a disaster. But if they see the bottom line of the disaster post the mortgage amount that she would add or subtract, right? Now she goes up to the 720. Now she has a net range, not just an asking price. She has a net range that's reasonable. One's the home run number. She knows it. One's the super ugly. So she can begin to have a better process looking in there, but we've closed down what she walks away with, not guessing from just top line. That's a big new distinction for me, that part of the formula is everybody gets one of those in addition to this. Got it?
Okay. Yes, got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for bringing it back up for clarification. All right, other questions about this, thoughts, or anything else? If you have a burning question about sales in general, I'll take it.
So you
Go ahead,
leave
Whitehead.
the full CMA or the full. You print off the CMA that you would send out to begin with, essentially of all the properties in the range, and you do that with the technical analysis, and then does that make sense?
I'm lost at what exact question, David, you're trying to ask me.
Okay, sorry. Hold on.
It's okay.
So I guess what I was asking is, honestly, what I've been doing is just leaving the technical analysis sheet, and sometimes I leave comp, sometimes I don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
I would be confident that what you're leaving behind has the analysis of the stuff that you used. Why would you just leave the analysis? Well, we've already established the thing that they want are pictures and details of the properties you used in your analysis, so they can make their own judgment about that stuff. You can't, why take that back off the table, right? What were you thinking?
Yep.
No, seriously, what were you thinking? Are you thinking, I know what most people are thinking. Well, I'm not leaving this behind. They might give it to another agent. Good. Let them give it to somebody else. Let God bless you. Knock yourself out. If you don't want me, I know that I fulfill the motto that sits up on my wall in my head. Be a person for others. And when you walk out and you left them better than you found them, that's the way you leave the information. Period.
That's right.
Period. That's your moral obligation. If that's the way you feel about this business, it's a privilege. And I guarantee you, who's going to take what you just did and use it the same way that you are? Nobody, because it's yours. It's your way. It's your explanation. It's your enthusiasm. How do you replace that? Right? And if they cheated on you after that, you missed something along the way with telemarketing. Yeah, come on. Go ahead. Somebody trying to say something? Whitehead, good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, buddy, good.
I just think it's a matter of, so that just needs to, I just need to take that as the next step, essentially. So just put it together when I put the package together.
Yeah, David, when you and I chat, I'll show you specifically what it looks like. There is a manila folder in the middle of my nice black folder that is mine. So when I open the whole thing in the driveway, I look at my intake sheet, the seller qualifying questionnaire, to get myself oriented. I take a look at the analysis. Now my team knows, so that they don't have to ask me, don't have to guess what adjustments I want now, so that I'm more empowered and it's clear. I hate to feel an awkward moment in the house when all I have to do is communicate with my team how to set it up for me. And so for Paul, that we would teach Paul how to do this, to walk it the same way, to be empowered by a simple system that's all basic math and logic, right? But they're going to get the pretty one, so that when we're done, it closes up in the same order I went through it, so that if they want to go back and review it, it's in the order I did it, including the net sheet, right? Great question though, Dave, because I think that detail really, really matters. And this goes all the way back to telemarketing intake. Once she gets somebody who wants the reconditioning conversation or the early conversation, I said, go for it. Get me there. Because what I've done, you do a telemarketing presentation, you send out some materials, but now you just got the deep dive introduction to my company through me or one of my agents. Now you really know who we are. And that allows us deeper into relationship. It's our first date, but now you're going to meet other people on the team, and we're going to continue with this information and updates, so that when the time comes and we come again, you're ready. You're not guessing. It's not chaos. Oh my gosh, the rentals ended. Now what do I do? No, not with us. No way. Got it?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Any final questions? Oops, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, it's just something, because I usually have the 7-step spreadsheet, and then I actually printed up the marketing one to kind of go into more detail on that, because people always have questions on that.
So do I.
And then the seller book I usually include, so it's just a matter of, okay, I need to do the comp. And then I think I need to change around my net sheet too, because the net sheet I usually do it on my phone, but I need to switch that around a little bit.
Yeah. Well, you're close.
On the phone,
you're close, David. Don't overthink it. Yeah. You're doing all those things correct. You're doing all those things correctly, but the big ta-da moment that they want is they want to know what their house is worth and what they're going to walk away with. So you have 3 beats. 1, the tour, so that you have a real vision for whether this is above or below average or at.
Right.
2, the process that you take your clients through. 3, the real math that matters to them. There's your beats, right?
Yeah. I don't think I'm overthinking it, because I've had a couple like that. I did one yesterday, or I did one this morning. I did one like a couple days ago. So like, I'm just kind of like looking at what I did and just trying to adjust a little bit.
For sure. We adjust every week. When we talk to you guys, we think about something, we tweak it. That seller intake form is getting cleaned up. Our net sheet is getting changed around, because we realize sometimes we'll be able to get the mortgage payoff, sometimes we won't, right? So we're going to put that more towards the bottom. Right. So maybe like that, and the septic repair, if need be, some things that we might not be able to get telemarketing, but we can get the field. But we're going in now with pre-printed net sheets based on a couple of the numbers in the range that we determined. So it pulls the two together. So we're not waiting anymore, because that's a fumbling and stumbling moment too. And that's what made everything more efficient and smooth as we went through it. So these little tweaks.
So are you just doing the lower? So if you got a $50,000 or $40,000 price range, so essentially just taking the lower number and doing it off that?
Well, not necessarily. We use a little bit more cerebral approach where we're trying to, where in this case, we knew she had expired around the average. So we took the average, which was a little lower than 15 grand lower than her expired number. And we took the low. Why not? I mean, why not? If I come in your house and you're a disaster, you're at the low. And this is what the low looks like. Yep. Right. So as Laura looks at it, makes a quick interpretatory moment happen. She does the net sheet based on as much refinement as she can do without over refining it. Make sense?
Gotcha.
And David, we're going to create
the number that they want.
David, we're going to add a third column, so that if need be in the house, that is blank, and I can do it, because I might need to make an in-house adjustment. Says, look, don't worry about this stuff that I brought. Now that I'm here, I want to make an adjustment. Follow me? I didn't know
Yep.
it was this nice. So let me cheat this number a little higher. Or I didn't know it needed this much work that you didn't want to do. Let me tweak it lower. So I take my guesstimates based on my analysis without seeing it, but I leave myself some leeway to engage deeper in a more personal way with some blanks. So those are the adjustments we're making as of now. Make sense?
Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
Cool. Awesome. Great question. And I'm thankful that you brought it up. All right. Listen, everybody, I'm at the end of the rope. We're 10 minutes in. I don't like to go too far with this. Thank you, everybody, for participation. Go out and try this stuff, as I say each week, and ask questions about this. Bring your own questions to me and your anecdotes. I know I had a couple people, Helena, if you're still on, you sent me something. I need those before the call, but I'll go over it with you personally. All right, everybody, have a great day. Thanks for being there. Longest day of the year. Enjoy.
Thank you.
You're welcome all.
Thank you.
Take care.